Hello everyone, welcome to our online class. Today we are going to learn a new chapter from our textbook. Fire, friend and foe. Foe means enemy. So how the fire will be our friend and foe, that we are going to check. Fire is both useful and dangerous. What is fire? How did we discover it? How do we control it? That only we are going to check in this chapter. So let's go to the chapter. Early man didn't know what fire was, but he must have seen the damage it could cause. So early man didn't know what the fire was, but he could have seen that the damage how a fire can cause. He must have watched lightning and volcanoes long before he began to use fire himself. So before discovering fire, the ancient people, early man, they must have seen the lightning and they must have volcanoes. So they must know the damage of fire. Fire was powerful and dangerous, and he was frightened. So by seeing those things, he must have frightened. Here he means the early man, early people. Fire may have puzzled early man, but we now know that fire is a result of a chemical reaction. So earlier the people might have puzzled, confused what is fire. By seeing the fire, they might have confused. They don't know what is that. What is a fire? But now we know what is fire. It's the result of a chemical reaction. When the oxygen in the air combines with the carbon and hydrogen in a fuel, a chemical reaction takes place. So we know what is fire. Fire means when the oxygen in the air joins with the carbon and hydrogen in a fuel, a chemical reaction takes place. That is fire. Energy in the form of heat and light is released in this process. So energy in the form of heat and light is released in this process, in that chemical reaction. This is what we call fire. So let's check the next paragraph. Three things are needed to make fire: fuel, oxygen and heat. So there are three things we needed to make fire. They are fuel, oxygen and heat. Wood, coal, cooking gas and petrol are some examples of fuel. So we know fuel means we can use wood as fuel, coal, cooking gas, petrol. These all are some examples of fuel. Oxygen comes from the air. So we'll get the oxygen from the air. That is why when you blow on smoldering paper, it often bursts into flame. Smoldering paper, burning slowly without flame. The paper, that is, if the paper is burning, that you might have seen if you go to kitchen which uses the wood as firewood, you can see that one. If you blow, what happens? It bursts into flame. The third thing needed to make fire is heat. Fuel and oxygen do not make fire by themselves, or else a newspaper or a stick lying in the open would catch fire on its own. So remember that one. Fuel and oxygen do not make fire by themselves. Fuel and oxygen. If fuel and oxygen join together, it will not make fire. We need heat also. Otherwise, what happens? If fuel and oxygen will make fire, then what will happen? Any newspaper or a stick which is lying on the ground, open place, it may catch fire. It is not catching fire because we need heat. There is no heat in that. That's why. To burn a piece of paper or wood, we heat it before it catches fire. So what happens? To burn a piece of paper or wood, we need to heat it before it catches fire. We generally do it with a lighted match. Match means matchstick. Every fuel has a particular temperature at which it begins to burn. So every fuel has a particular temperature. In that temperature only that fuel starts to burn. This temperature is called the flash point or kindling temperature of the fuel. Kindling temperature. So, flash point or kindling temperature, we can say that one. Kindling temperature means a small piece of wood or sticks used to start fire. Kindling temperature. It is sometimes said that you might have learned this type of things in chemistry. It is sometimes said that fire is a good servant but a bad master. So remember that one. Fire is a good servant but a bad master. So if you have a control over fire, then it will be very good for us. But if you don't have control over it, if it become your master, then it will destroy you. So that is there. If you have the control, that means if the fire is your servant, it's a good one. If it is you don't have any control over the fire, then definitely it will destroy you. It only means that fire is very useful as long as it kept under control. So that means if the fire is very useful as long as it is kept under our control. For instance means example. For example, we use it to cook our food. We use fire to cook our food, warm our homes in winter, and to generate electricity. But on the other hand, if fire gets out of control, it can be very dangerous. So remember, we are using the fire to cook food, to warm our homes in winter, and to generate electricity. But in another hand, if the fire gets out of our control, it can be very dangerous. Each year, thousands of homes and shops are damaged by fire. Vast areas of forest are also destroyed and hundreds of people are killed or injured. So you might have seen that when the shops are getting fire, even the forest also firing. Just as three things are needed to start a fire, there are three main ways in which a fire can be put out. So we know there are three ways to start fire. At the same way, we have three ways to put out the fire. Put out means to stop, to destroy. In each, one of the three things needed for burning is taken away. So each three things we needed. In each, one of the three things needed for burning is taken away. So to stop the fire. For example, we can take away the fuel. So one thing, we can take away the fuel. If the fire has no fuel to feed on, no burning can take place. We often let a fire die out simply by not adding more fuel to it. So one thing, first thing is that to remove the fuel from that. So to stop giving the fuel. So if fuel is there, it will continue to start fire. But if you remove that fuel, then the fire simply die out. The second way of putting out a fire is to prevent oxygen from reaching it. Second way is that to prevent oxygen from reaching into the fire. No supply of oxygen means no fire. Small fires can be put out or smothered with a damp blanket or a sack. You might have seen that one, using that wet blanket or sack to cover it over it. Smothered, suffocated from lack of air. Smothered, suffocated. So then the fire will be get out. This stops oxygen reaching the burning material. Sometimes carbon dioxide is used to extinguish fire. It does not allow oxygen to reach the burning material. You might have seen fire extinguisher. Fire extinguishers are there. In our school, we have seen one in petrol pumps, in cinema theaters. Most of the public areas you can see fire extinguishers. So they are using carbon dioxide to extinguish the fire, to put out the fire. The third way of putting out a fire is to remove the heat. If the temperature can be brought down below the flash point, the fuel is burning. We know what is meant by flash point. We checked in this paragraph what is flash point. What is that? Flash point, what is that? the temperature. Every fuel has a particular temperature at which it begins to burn. That particular temperature is called the flash point. So check it. So what do we have to do there? If the temperature can be brought down below the flash point, the fuel stops burning. You blow on a burning matchstick or a candle to put out. So if you are blowing on the matchstick or a candle, then that fire will extinguish. In doing so, you will remove the hot air around the flame, bringing down its temperature below the flash point, and the candle goes out. Sometimes water is sprayed on a fire. It absorbs heat from the burning fuel and lowers the temperature. The blanket of water also cuts off the supply of oxygen and the fire is extinguished. So with this all things we all know. So blowing on the candle, we are using that. What is we are putting the blanket, wet blanket or sack, we are keeping on the fire to extinguish the fire. Then some fires cannot be put out with water. If water is sprayed onto an oil fire, the oil will float to the top of the water and continue to burn. So oil fire. So sometimes we know the oil will not mix with the water. So if the oil gets fire, if you are adding more water on oil fire, what happens? The oil will float on the water and it will continue to burn. This can be very dangerous because water can flow quickly, carrying the burning oil with it and spreading the fire. So remember that one, an oil caught fire and you are pouring water on it. Then what happens? The water will take the oil and fire with it and it will flow here and there and it will increase the burning and it will become very dangerous. Water should also not be used on fires caused by electrical appliances. So any electrical appliances, if any fire is spread by electrical appliances, so we should not pour water on that electrical appliances. What will happen? The person spraying water might receive an electric shock and be killed. A carbon dioxide extinguisher is the best thing to fight an electrical fire. So we know carbon dioxide, that is fire extinguisher, is the best thing to fight an electrical fire. Then we can go to the next part. We spend millions of rupees each year in fighting fires. We spend millions of rupees each year in fighting fire, to extinguish fire. And we spend more trying to find new ways of preventing fires from happening and getting out of control. On the whole, we have learned rather well to control fire and put it to good use in our everyday life. So we are getting preventing means to stop, preventing fire, to stop fire. Long ago, there were no firemen. Remember, long ago there were no firemen. When fire broke out, everybody became a firefighter. People formed human chains. They still do if required. This one we are still doing if it is required. And passed buckets of water from a well or a pond to the blaze. Blaze means fire. Now there are laws about building construction which ensure that space is left between buildings to reduce the fire risk. So there are laws, building construction laws are there. There must be some particular space between the buildings to reduce the risk of the fire. Every new building, especially a public place, must ensure observance of fire prevention norms. Fire, that is the things which is used to extinguish the power. We know we have that fire extinguisher at our school. So like that public place, we already discussed that one. Fire extinguishers are keeping in it's a law now. Bands of firefighting workers with special equipment known as fire brigades are there to put out fire. We know firemen, so they are called fire brigades. Equipment means things needed to do some work. Firefighters are highly trained people. They possess many skills. They cut off electricity supply, knock down dangerous walls, spray water and other materials to bring fire under control. So they are very skilled person. They are learned very much. They trained firefighters. They are also trained in first aid so that they can help people suffering from burns or from the effects of smoke. So they have learned many things. They are also trained in first aid so that they can help people suffering from burns or from the effects of the smoke. The discovery of fire and its uses helped early man to cope with means deal with, deal with, manage with the nature better and gradually adopt a settled mode of life. Fire is still worshipped in many parts of the world. Fire is indeed a friend. Really, indeed means really. Fire is really a friend, but as we know, it can be a dangerous enemy once it gets out of control. So that is there. So fire is a good thing. We need fire for many things. It's a helpful thing. But remember one thing, if the fire is out of our control, definitely it is a dangerous enemy. It will burn out everything, it will destroy everything, it will cause a very dangerous thing. So that we have learned from our chapter fire, friend and foe. I hope you all understood this chapter. If you have any doubts about this, you can ask it in the comment box. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Take care. Bye. See you later.